Welcome back, Yosef Nasser, Nick Yor here to tie up some loose ends regarding DC area sports, big picture sporting stories, and a move that sent shockwaves. The Wizards finally get rid of Ernie Grunfeld. They fired him yesterday, longtime GM. He's been the general manager of the team since 2003. The team hasn't enjoyed much success outside of that one outstanding year with Gilbert Arenas where they were able to make the playoffs, and then John Wall and company able to make the second round a handful of times. Other than that, it's been a lot of curious moves, and you pointed out a tweet by Phil Simmons, his favorite WTF Ernie Grunfeld moments, and he lists the $111 million Arenas extension when he was coming off of major knee surgery, number 5 pick for Mike Miller and Randy Foye in the same draft where Ricky Rubio went 5, Stephen Curry went 7, DeMar DeRozan went 9, $64 million for Jan Mahimi in the summer of 2016. Not alone in terms of bad Simons that year. Jan Vesely, number 6 pick in 2011.
Kawhi Leonard.
That draft, Kawhi Leonard went 15. Klay Thompson went 11. Jimmy Butler went 30. Isaiah Thomas went 60. And then a big Andre Blatche extension that immediately had to be amnestied. So what are you going to remember about the Ernie Grunfeld move? It seems like about time with some of the moves that he's made in his tenure as the general manager of the Washington Wizards.
Yeah, we were speaking off the set. You said about 5 years too late, and I'd have to agree with you. I mean, 16 seasons he's been here, and I think after that year where, like you said, Wizards were in the conference semifinals versus a Hawks team that a lot of people thought were beatable. It was that team, they had 4 All-Stars, they were the number 1 seed, but they didn't have a star. They had 4 good players, and Washington was actually in that series. It was 2-2, and Wall got another injury, which he tends to get a lot of, and he got a very bad knee injury, missed the remainder of that series, and they were out. And they never really made a run after that. And you saw all the corresponding bad moves where they thought they were close. They were close then, right? So they think they're close. They just had one bad injury, and they're in the Eastern Conference Finals versus LeBron James's Cavs team, who early on his first year was struggling with David Blatt. They were beatable. So they think, oh, they're close. So then you see, oh, this is what Ernie Grunfeld's really about. This is what really sticks out to me. Oh, we're close. Now Ernie's got to make a couple moves here and there to get us over the top, to get us to compete with these people. And then, like you said, here comes the awful signings. The Jan Mahimi to play backup big for $64 million. Yep. In what world is today's NBA? Do you need a backup big for that much money? I mean, oh, my God. Then just the Otto Porter extension, matching that, not letting him go to Brooklyn with all these pieces available in free agency, people spending money left and right, and all you're spending money on is Jan Mahimi. I mean, it's so frustrating. I mean, you could tell Wall and Beal, they wanted to get in meetings with these players. Paul George, they would just come off the dunk contest with each other. He was interested. I mean, it just seemed like there was all these people that could have come to DC when it was DC Rising. You remember those slogans, all 4 sports teams, they had young players. That was the time to really kind of get this roster in perfect position, and at each big moment he failed. So I really just think, no-brainer. Just had to go ever since then.
And you talk about that Hawks series. Had Wall been healthy, I think they would have advanced to the Eastern Conference Finals. Probably would have lost to the Cavaliers, but still, that making the Eastern Conference Finals a big step, and then taking the Celtics to Game 7 a few years later. But as you mentioned, move after move, just not going the way it should. You can even look to this season, 3 moves in particular. You look at the Kelly Oubre for Trevor Ariza. Ariza's probably going to leave after the season. We laughed at it at the time, the whole mix-up with whether it was Dylan Brooks or Marshawn Brooks and the 3-way trade there. Then you look at the move, trading Otto Porter. You've got him in the fold, and you trade him for Jabari Parker and Bobby Portis, 2 forwards who don't play defense. Both are free agents after the season. You're going to have to dip into the salary cap to try to bring them back if you want to. Jabari, an unrestricted free agent. Bobby Portis, restricted free agent. And then the move that has me scratching my head when it happened last offseason is when they bring in Dwight Howard and they sign him a 2-year contract with a player option on the second year. This is a guy who was people thought was on the outskirts. He'd been run out of town in Charlotte, run out of town Atlanta the year before. Charlotte had traded him to Brooklyn. They didn't want anything to do with him, so they just bought him out. Wasn't able to get it done in Houston, LA, everywhere the guy has been. Nobody wanted him. You give him the player option. This is a guy who people thought would get minimum offers, and instead he looks like he's going to be on the roster for $5.5 million next season. So head-scratching moves. What do the Wizards have to do to shift gears and kind of change the narrative that surrounded this team moving forward?
Yeah, I think I heard a lot of people talking about this, and Tim Legler, I thought, did a great job explaining it on ESPN. I mean, he played in Washington a couple years of his career. Very good player for the Wizards, very good three-point shooter, and he just talked about it needed a complete culture change. And I agree 100%, but he was talking about how it needed to be a lot more toughness, a lot more this and that. And I thought the Wizards kind of tried to go that way when with Randy Whitman, other teams were zigging and zagging, and they were going the opposite way. Teams are going to three-point shooting, stretch bigs, and stuff like that, and the Wizards went toughness. They kept starting Nene and Gortat together in those playoff series when a lot of teams weren't doing that. They were going more guard-oriented, stuff like that. So I think they do need a culture change, but I don't think it's necessarily in a toughness change. I mean, we've heard what Trevor Ariza said when he first got to Washington. He said no one wanted to play, no one wanted to be here, no one wanted to win. He was already pretty much doomed once he got there, and that's just a culture thing, and it's the whole organization. So I really think we just need to kind of just strip it down. You have a building block with Bradley Beal. That's money well spent. I think you're going to have to hang on to John Wall because no one's really going to take that contract. So you have those two guys. You really just got to strip everything else down and try to build behind those two guys with young pieces moving forward, or free agency if they can use their connections, those two stars, because you know how NBA is these days. It's more of a player and star-driven league.
Initially, if you'd asked me a few months ago, I would have said keep Beal. He's the one pillar that you have that you can build around John Wall. As you mentioned, the contract is just an albatross. We were reading earlier today, 35% of the cap. Now, 80% of that is getting covered by insurance, but that does not affect salary cap implications. So, tough situation there. I think maybe you trade Beal at this stage, try to get some picks, try to get some young players, because by the time he's up for his next contract, will he even want to stay? He said all of the right things, but, he's going to be in the middle of his career and looking potentially for a payday and a chance to win. I don't know if you can do that at Washington. I think it's going to be a long-term rebuild. Let's do some quick hitters. Bryce Harper went to the Philadelphia Phillies the offseason, returned to a chorus of boos, although the Philly faithful were out taunting some of the Nationals fans there, and Bryce Harper with the ultimate taunt, hitting a homer in the 8th inning bat flip. Teams are playing today, tied 8-8 in the top of the 9th. What's your perspective on Bryce Harper? The Nationals, it's early in the baseball season, but they are 1-3 on the season. The Phillies are 4-0. What's your perspective on the whole Bryce Harper situation?
I was there last night for the Nationals, and it just makes me really sad. I mean, it's just sad that went as bad as it could have gone for Washington last night. I don't want to be too depressed already. Like you said, it is a young season, but 1-4, and the way you've been losing these games, and just the way Harper did you last night. It was just the worst possible way that could have gone last night for Washington. That turned into Eagles-Redskins in FedEx Field, with the Eagles fans taking over FedEx Field, taking over their stadium. And that happened again last night in the 5th game of the season against your arch rivals now. And they took over that park, and he was pumping his fist and dancing and bat flipping. And I don't know if they hit him today. They should have, but if they didn't, then, it's a bad look for Washington. I don't want to be too depressed too depressed so early, but it is not looking good for Washington. It could be another rebuild coming up in Washington, D.C.
Shortstop Trey Turner, injured finger as well, adding injury to insult.
He's the star now that Bryce is gone. It's his team.
Him and Max Scherzer. 0-2 on the season as Scherzer not getting the run support early in his 2 starts.
Run support went to Philly.
Yep.
It's just so frustrating. When has Washington, D.C. had a star like this?
Yeah.
And just to let him go to your rivals. I know you didn't want to pay him the money, but now it's coming out. You gave him this awful offer with all these back incentives and stuff. It's just no wonder he went to Philly, and I was there booing him just like everybody else. But, it's hard to watch. I mean, that's like if Ovechkin left before winning a cup and then went to the Penguins or the Flyers. I mean, it's tough to watch, man. It was hard. I couldn't even watch SportsCenter last night because it was every show was just highlighting Bryce's all his doubles, his homers, his fist bumps. Ugh.
You talk about the Capitals playoffs right around the corner. What's your outlook for the Capitals going into Stanley Cup playoffs with the playoffs right around the corner? What do you like about the Capitals? What do you think they need to improve upon?
Yeah, I really like how they kind of turned it around. I think this is a good sign for them. They were in that kind of slump a couple weeks ago, lost a couple games. We had talked about this on Redskins Relaunch, just a couple moves they need to make, and they made a few moves. They brought in a couple defenders. You see they bring in Carl Hagelin, an ex-Pittsburgh Penguin, as well to play the wing. He's had some impact, and they just made those few moves. I think that's what you got to do if you're a championship team. I mean, you've seen the Golden State Warriors. It gets stale after a while, regular season. You got to same guys. You mix it in. You keep the same core, but you mix in some other pieces. Keep it interesting, and I think that's what they've done. Now they're playing their best hockey right now. Top of the Metro Division, very good Metro Division with the New York Islanders, Pittsburgh Penguins, Columbus Blue Jackets. All those teams probably going to make the playoffs as well. It's going to be tough for Washington, obviously, in those playoffs, the way it's situated in the NHL, but hopefully they get a good first-round matchup with one of these teams that barely squeaks in, Carolina or Montreal, and they can go from there because they are playing their best, some of their best hockey of the season right now as the playoffs start.
Finally, the tournament came alive in that Elite Eight. Absolutely electric. That Virginia-Purdue game in particular. Carson Edwards.
Unbelievable.
Hitting shot after shot. Kyle Guy, big plays. DeAndre Hunter gets pulled in the second half because he's getting killed on switches, and then he makes a big bucket in the overtime. Ty Jerome making big time plays. Michigan State able to defeat Duke, upset Duke. Another great game. We look at the Final Four this weekend. What do you think is who do you think is going to be playing in the championship game? Final Four is on Saturday. The championship game is on Monday. UVA is going to play Auburn, I believe, and then Texas Tech plays Michigan State. Who do you have advancing to the Final Four and eventually winning the men's basketball championship?
I think I got Michigan State beating Texas Tech. I've seen Texas Tech play a lot this year, but in the end, it's Texas Tech basketball. I mean, it'd be weird just to say Texas Tech basketball is in the national championship, but Chris Beard's a heck of a coach, one of the best coaches in the country. Don't know how much longer he's going to be at Texas Tech, but he is a very good coach, very good player as well. Jared Culver, I think Michigan State, the experience, been there before. Izzo, I think they're improperly seeded as well. Probably should have been a 1 seed, and that kind of hurts Duke because we saw a Final Four type matchup in the Elite Eight, and that both those teams should probably be in the Final Four. But Michigan State's the better team. I think they move on. Auburn, I mean, they've done a great run, but how much can the shooting keep up, especially when you're playing against such a great team in Virginia? Virginia finally got the monkey off their back in that Elite Eight game. You saw the joy with Tony Bennett cutting the nuts down. I mean, I've never seen someone so excited. I mean, Ty Jerome, Kyle Guy hugging each other. I think they're finally over the hump, so I think they're going to win their game, and then it's going to be Michigan State, Virginia again. I know Virginia fans do not like this. They played each other twice in recent tournaments. Michigan State won both times, a Sweet 16 and an Elite Eight. And I think Michigan State's probably going to beat them again in the national championship, unfortunately, for my Virginia friends.
Derek, do you have any thoughts on this upcoming game? No?
I'll ask you, Carson Edwards, do you think, how much of that stock do you think improved NBA?
I mean, I think Carson Edwards was a second round. He was in the second round territory, but I think, according to guys like Mike Schmitz of ESPN, Draft Express, he's played himself into the back end of the first round at the very least. Obviously not a pure point guard, but a guy who can come off the bench, provide some scoring. I think he was absolutely terrific. And
so you see him as a good, viable NBA player?
No, for sure. With that kind of shooting ability, that kind of range, I think he's probably a 2 guard as opposed to a guy who can play on the ball, but shooting is at a premium in the NBA, and this guy showed incredible toughness throughout, being able to carry his team. One of the best performances we've seen in the tournament. So I think he's terrific. Jarrett Culver of Texas Tech, probably the best prospect remaining in the Final Four. He's projected to go top 5. DeAndre Hunter also in that mix. But I think ultimately got UVA and Michigan State advancing, and I just think Izzo gets it done when it matters most. Most experienced coach You know, I mean, you've got Bruce Pearl, obviously. You've got Chris Beard, Tony Bennett, but I think Tom Izzo, his credentials take him to another level. So it should be fun to watch. Interesting to say. One final thought. Alex Rodriguez on ESPN Sunday night took a shot at DC fans. DC fans are more worried about who's in the White House than who's on the field. Does he have a point, Nick? I mean, we live in the DMV. He said Phillies fans love them some Phillies.
All right. That's the main part I have beef with. I mean, I get the shots at Washington. People have been doing that forever. Michael Wilbon called him a minor league sports town. I mean, so I don't like Wilbon. I mean, I still like Wilbon, obviously, now because he's kind of walked it back, wrote a nice article why LeBron should come to D.C., but Alex Rodriguez has no business saying that. I mean, and then to go on and congratulate Philly fans, like those aren't, like, which everyone doesn't believe are the worst fans besides Philadelphia people. I mean, just they booed Bryce Harper his first game. He struck out. They booed him. They threw snowballs at Santa Claus, whatever, a while ago, however many years that was ago. I mean, I wouldn't have a problem with talking. That was a true statement. DC fans are most likely about that. But then to go and rave on Philly, who Philly fans love themselves some Phillies. Phillies have been not very good the past couple of years. That ballpark has not been filled. So I don't know why he went on just a love fest with Philadelphia. Maybe because they were in Philadelphia at the time. But I don't. I mean, the comment was fair on DC, but just to go loathe after Philadelphia I just over the top.
Well, there you have it. Nick Yor is going to come to the defense of the DC fans against Alex Rodriguez. It's another fun episode of Redskins Relaunch. Got a lot covered. For more content regarding everything in the DMV, be sure to check us out at DMVSTREAM.COM. Be sure to check out Winston Colvin next week on Redskins Relaunch. Enjoyed having us with you. Thanks for watching.
This content is brought to you by Dental Associates. For more than 39 years, Dr. Stephen Price has been practicing dentistry in Northern Virginia. A member of the American Dental Association, the Northern Virginia Dental Society, and the Virginia Dental Society, Price is considered an expert in Invisalign and continues to be an award-winning innovator in the industry.